Everyone knows that Samsung is one of the world's leading electronic bias directors. But most people do not know that the brand that creates appliances for our pleasure and comfort was created in a time of great rigor. Be it a TV or mobile phone, so numerous of us or our cousins have possessed a Samsung device at least formally in our lives. So in a moment's videotape, we will tell you how it started. Then we begin. Lee Byung-Chull was born in 1910, during the Great Korean Empire conflict when Japan tried to foray into the nation. After graduating from a high academy in South Korea, Lee was transferred to Tokyo to pursue his council studies, but he went to Norway. After returning home, he ultimately established his own grocery trade company, Samsung Trading Company. 3 stars are what Samsung implies. The name was associated with the company's thing of getting as strong and enduring as stars in the sky. At first, Samsung primarily retailed food and other goods. Then, for illustration, it packed poles to China and ended poles each over the nation. Then, as demand surged during World War II, Samsung made a substantial profit. In the time of 2017, Lee Jae-jong and the law made by him was set up to be a very shameful act of grafting and defalcation and has been settled in the presidential amnesty. Lee Jae-yong was a white-collar criminal in South Korea serving 2 terms as a former chairman during the pandemic. According to the South Korean government, for the country's post-pandemic recovery, the nation needs to be back to its original form for driving the country's situation, which was in de facto CEO of the largest pot of the nation. This makes a new turn in the country's conflict governance, which has raged down since large-scale demonstrations in Seoul 6 times, junking the chairman's position. Lee's offenses were directly connected to an illegal act of corruption that resulted in the former chairman being locked up from 2013 to 2017 in Park Geun-hye. Paid president, Park and his assistant, demonstrator, called for taking a bribe of $8 million to gain congratulations and goodwill for a junction that was opposed by the shareholders but got stretched by the control over the family's terms and connections of the Crown Prince of Samsung. Park was sent to jail for over 25 years in 2017 because of being connected to the Korean Parliament government. After relieving from jail, Lee was famous by another name, J.Y. Lee, in the West Zone, which was very popular for the captivity of crimes like stealing cash for giving steed to the chairman's friend's son. One day, Moon Jae-in, the new chairman, lay in the office with a promise to handle and sort out the situation, but he didn't find anything authentic for the solution. After this, he asked for forgiveness during his final hours as chairman. After that, a new CEO came, but Samsung CEO again one precursor. It's a very bad and hurtful story for those fighting against corruption. It's a very bad failure for the people of South Korea. People living there went again to the dark nightmares. Park, economics and artificial policy professor at Seoul National University, made this statement. The octopus influence. The recent Lee's case confirmed the perception that business elephants are untouchable and above the law. This is a problem because it gives business entities an unfair advantage over regular citizens. It also erodes public trust in the legal system. The Lee's case is not the first instance of businesses being accused of breaking the law and getting away with it. Many examples of businesses have broken the law and have not been held accountable. They are subject to the same laws as everyone else. The problem is that the laws are not enforced equally. Many examples of businesses have broken the law and have not been held accountable. For example, in 2015, Volkswagen was caught cheating on emissions tests. As a result, the company was fined $2.8 billion by the U.S. government. However, criminal charges were not brought against the company or its executives. This created the perception that businesses could break the law and escape it. The problem is that the laws are not enforced equally. This needs to change. Confucianism, emphasizing hierarchy and respect for authority, have long been a breeding ground for corruption. Korean politicians have taken advantage of this by using their positions of power to enrich themselves and their families. However, there has been a growing public outcry against corruption in recent years in Korean politics. This has led to several high-profile investigations and prosecutions of corrupt politicians. However, many observers believe that the problem is far from being solved. Several factors contribute to the ongoing problem of corruption in Korean politics. First, the country's political parties are often weak and fragmented, making it easy for politicians to act in their self-interest. Second, the the close relationship between business and politics in Korea. But only a few months into his alternate judgment, the Moon administration said it was in the country's stylish interests to let him out on parole. Since then, he has returned to serve as the public face of Samsung, bringing U.S. President Joe Biden to South Korea in May on a trade visit. Lee is still indicted for violating the terms of his imprisonment by making business choices for Samsung and fixing company valuations. Still, he can completely renew his superintendent liabilities if he receives leniency. It's harmonious with chaebol leaders who have been set up shamefaced, having their records cleared. But according to Prof. Lee, the National Assembly and the Chairman's office have strict power in making laws. But it boils down to a coalition of conservative political and profitable elites who have all collective interests regarding political power, artistic impact, or how people perceive chaebol's significance in Korean society. A winning fighting spirit. Team, you have awful dispatches, the cheerleader blatted. She bounded into the air, ruffled her wrists, threw her right arm out, and snapped a forefinger into a white glove. Start! At a gathering named the Samsung Summer Festival, the day's rookies were the freshest group to walk through the gates of this digital fort. They had been preparing to become knights of Samsung men and women for more than 2 weeks. They had gone through charge camps, gone on hikes, and endured sleep privation while learning to cooperate and be kind to one another. 4 Samsung recruiting departments performed that day in what was supposed to be a platoon structure exertion, each sporting its distinctive vesture, but rather the intention was to have fun. The company's fluorescence was also present. To spell out winning one letter at a time using the Samsung colors of blue and white, the rookies broke conformation and ran in the direction of a cube while lading up bags from the ground. Samsung despises circumlocutions of intelligence made between its business procedures and those of North Korea, although these parallels are constantly made by Samsung workers. Workers at Samsung have supposedly reported that Steve Jobs had his cult at Apple. There are other electronic manufacturers with cultish characteristics besides Samsung. Also, Samsung joined the oil painting refinery, cement, toxin, nylon, department store, and other diligence in 1954. Samsung also acquired the top 3 banks in Korea and began offering insurance services. Samsung entered the electronics industry in 1969. The Korean Request replied positively to Samsung because it chose its products over those made by Japan. As a result, Samsung entered the request for telecom bias in 1980. First, Samsung started making telephone switchboards, also fanning out into telephone and fax systems before switching to the product of mobile phones. When Lee Byung-Chull passed away in 1987, his third son, Lee Hun-ki, took over as chairman and ran the company. Samsung nonetheless managed to keep 10% of the request share, while Motorola dominated despite the failure of several large companies like Amazon, LG, and others in the mobile business. Samsung still put a lot of plutocrats into developing technology and concentrated on creating smartphones. As a result, in the 21st century, Samsung's tech business grew, ultimately catching Sony as the world's 20th largest consumer pot. Also, it cemented its position as the most well-liked consumer brand overall. Samsung entered the smartphone market with the Samsung Galaxy S launch in June 2010. After that, the Samsung Galaxy was a great mega hit. With each new model introducing new features, Samsung performed well in tablets and smartphones. Still, in 2019, it was discovered that the performance of more than 0 apps was broken by more than 56 by Samsung's game-optimizing services, which is pre-installed in certain Galaxy flagship handsets. After this, Samsung lost its ascendance in the smartphone market, but it lately increased its tech investments and returned with new models in 2022. It has been a huge success overall. It's presently ranked among the top 10 enterprises in the world and has a net worth of further than $500 billion US. So, South Koreans tell me, has Samsung become too big to fail because of the inordinate boons of Samsung and the Lee family? Aiming for excellence in all we do and perfecting our chops and ways until we achieve it should be the vision. Inculcate it if it does not formerly live. That's it for today's video, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more updates. Thanks for watching.